Ready? Hi everybody, Vincent here. Thank you very much for coming to my webinar tonight about confidence. So I want to say hello to everybody on Facebook, YouTube, Instagram. Thank you all so much for being here. And for everybody on Zoom, I've got you all here beside me. So any comments that you want to make throughout, any questions that you have, pop them into the chat and I will answer your questions. To introduce myself, I'm from the Midlands, Kildare, Christy Moore territory, and anybody who's not from Ireland, he's a very famous Irish musician. And I moved to Dublin years ago and got involved in helping people to improve themselves. So I've been here ever since. So I want to find out, before we begin, where are you all from? Now, for anybody on Facebook, YouTube, and Instagram, you can put your comments in, and I've got somebody keeping an eye on that, and it will feed around to me. And for anybody on Zoom, you can pop your comments into the chat here, and I can literally look there, and there you'll be. So if you don't mind, pop a little comment in. Just let me know where you are, because I'm interested. I really like to find out at the start where everybody is. Are you in Donegal? Are you in Cork? Are you in Dublin? Are you in Wales, London? Where are you? That's what I want to know. Where are you? Mairead in Dublin. Hi, Mairead. Thank you for joining us. Anybody else want to? I just say hello to you all there. Julie, Eileen, Margaret, Ivan, Carmel, Alla, and Mairead and Stephanie. Alla's from Dublin. Hi, Alla. Great. Margaret's from London. Hello, Margaret. Thanks very much for joining us. Got loads of relatives over in London. My dad he's passed away, but he was a builder, and in the 50s they all moved over to London, and half of them came back, half of them stayed. Okay, folks, so yeah, if I miss a comment, or if you want to pop in where you're from, please do so, and I will come back to the comments. I check them regularly throughout the webinar. Now, the promise with tonight's webinar is to give you some really good data, really basic, underlying, important data about self-confidence, which you probably have not heard before. I'm going to cover some basics that you probably know about already, but I'm not going to spend too much time on them because they're common sense. But I am going to get in and start looking at the real root of the issue. Carmel from Northern Ireland. Hi, Carmel. And Ivan from Carlow. Hi, Ivan. I grew up not too far from Carlow. Okay, my webinar tonight is based on this book called Dianetics. Dia means through, netics means the mind. Dianetics, through the mind. It was written by this gentleman. His name is L. Ron Hubbard, and this guy also developed a subject called Scientology, which is a lot more known about. That word means study of knowledge. But that was afterwards. So this particular webinar is primarily based on this book, and the reason I have chosen this book as the manual is because it really gets to the core of lack of confidence, and it creates stable results, and that's what I'm here to give you tonight. And the promise here is to give you stable data about confidence so that you know what's going on and that you know why it is that sometimes you lose your confidence. Okay, please stay till the end. We'll be here for about 45 minutes or maybe an hour. And at the end of it, I'll just tell you about a little course that I'm doing. It's the last week of the course for anybody who's interested. It's a little course at the end if anybody wants to follow up on it. Okay, now while you're on the webinar, turn off your TV. The cat's running around, jumping up on top of you, put her somewhere. If the kids are running around your feet, then just get them drawing or something. Just because I want you to get all this data. All right, now, me personally, you're probably wondering, who's this guy anyway to be talking about self-confidence? To give you a little bit about my history, I grew up in the countryside. I moved to Dublin in the 90s. I studied personnel management as part of a business studies degree course. And I was doing that because it was like the closest thing to what I thought I might like to do. But I went traveling and I ended up in Munich in Germany, and I found this book. and I decided this is exactly what I was looking for because it works. And that's all I was looking for. Something that helped people that works. And that's the early 90s. And I've been promoting this subject ever since. So over 25 years promoting this one subject for the simple reason is that it works. And for no other fancy reason. Now, when we're talking about lack of confidence, we've all gone through these particular periods, including myself. Now, particularly when I was a teenager and into my late teens, I was very lacking in confidence, very shy, very much so. Now, I'm still, I'm not, you wouldn't say I'm the life and soul of the party, but I say what I want to say when I want to say it. And I do the webinar, so people think, oh, Vincent must be, oh, he must be like an actor or something like that. I'm not really. I am, yeah, kind of quiet enough, but I still can say what I want to say and go for things that I want to go for. Simple as that. But it wasn't like that when I was a teenager and in my late teens coming into college. I was very shy and I missed opportunities and I didn't develop relationships as I should have. And it caused me a lot of trouble in terms of regrets, things that I wanted to do that I just didn't do, and so forth. Okay, so I've got my own personal understanding of lack of confidence. But before I begin on the webinar, I'd like to find out what is your reason for coming here. So if you don't mind, next exercise for the webinar, if you don't mind, pop into the chat what you would like to gain from this webinar. Because I've got a series of things that I want to go over with you, but I want to kind of find out what is exactly your reason for being here. And that's you individually. Yes, you. Just type in, I've got lack of confidence in relationships. And you don't even have to be specific. You can just put in work or relationships. So if you don't mind, exercise number 2. I'm getting you busy. Pop into the chat what you would like to improve, what you'd like to find out about. Because, yeah, I can go in a certain direction, but I want to make sure I'm bringing you with me and that you don't, like, hop off the train halfway down to Carlow. So just pop into the chat what it is that you would like to improve. You're obviously here at the, Regain Your True Confidence webinar. I guess it's confidence that you're here for, but what area? What's the area of your life that you'd like to improve your confidence in? Maybe it's a couple of areas. You don't have to pop it in, but I'd like it if you did. Just kind of gives me a flavor of where we're going here tonight. Save you time. Okay, communication, Eileen. Thank you. Very good. Okay, stress. Okay, dealing with assertive people. Yes, thank you, Carmel. Okay, communication, assertive people. Anybody else want to pop in a comment into the chat as to what it is that you would like to improve in terms of your confidence and how is it affecting you in areas? Okay, superiors, yeah. Thank you very much, NH. Okay, anybody else want to pop in? Okay, well, if you do, please add your comment into the chat and I'll check it again in a minute if there's anybody else, okay? So we have a couple of things there which mainly deal with communication, and there's another one, Julie, public speaking. I'm just writing these down so I can relate to them throughout the webinar. And meeting people. Yeah, understood. Okie dokie. Margaret, how to speak to someone when they did not reply. Also dealing with intimidating people. Lovely. Okay. Interesting. That's good. Good. I'm really glad. Thank you very much, everybody, for popping in your comments. And it gives me a good idea about what we're going to do here. Okay. Anybody else want to pop something in? Allah, communication in new country with new people. Okay. Very good. Communication. Very good. Thank you. Okay. Anybody else? If you do, great. If not, don't worry. I'll come and catch it very shortly. Okay, let's begin. So we look at the word confidence first. I did Latin in school for 3 years, so I usually break these down. This comes from Latin, con, which basically means with or it also intensifies the word. In other words, it makes it stronger. What comes next? And this comes from fidere, which means to trust. Okay? So basically to trust somebody with something. So if you have confidence that your car is going to get you to London on the ferry and down through whatever, what's the name? I don't know what the name of that road is down there, right the way down through England. But that big long road, if you have confidence in your car, you trust your car to get you there. If you're in a relationship and you have confidence in your partner, you trust them to be there for you. If you have a good friend and you tell all your personal stuff to your good friend, then you have confidence in your friend, okay? So if that's what confidence is, then we can establish very clearly what self-confidence basically means. Exactly. It means trust of self. Do you trust yourself to do things or don't you? Do you trust yourself to communicate to your boss or to meet people? Do you trust yourself to go out and open up your own business? Do you trust yourself to follow through with your eating plan or your goals? How much do you trust yourself? Is the basic underlying meaning of what self-confidence is. So we're going to touch off a couple of things, okay, before we get into the main topic. So when we look at confidence, there's a couple of factors which you're probably already aware of, and I'm just going to touch them very lightly with a little bit more emphasis on the communication, because I was going to touch that one anyway. Basically skill. So this is the first one that's going to determine your confidence, I should say. Skill and competence, how competent, how good you are in what you do. So for example, I would be fairly confident in delivering webinars. I've done them for a long time. I feel very comfortable. It's easy to me. But somebody else might not be confident. If you told me tomorrow to get in and drive a huge lorry from here to Galway, I would not be confident doing it. I wouldn't trust myself to do it. However, I would say, you know what, I could learn, but I'm not going to be able to do it right now, but I could learn how to do it. So there are areas that I'm confident in and areas that I'm just not confident in because I don't have the skill. I don't have the training. So my next exercise for you is this. Can you give me an example of one area of your life where you do feel confident in? Pop it into the chat. Give me an example of an area of your life where you do feel confident in. Is it with your kids, your job, your profession? Is it dealing with your family? Is it handling your diet, cleaning the house, driving a car, sweeping the floor? What is one area of your life that you do feel confident in? It can be small or it can be big. If you don't mind popping that in the chat, I'd be most grateful. One area in your life where you do feel confident. What would be an example of that for you personally? Are there certain types of people that you feel confident talking to? Are there certain situations that you've no problem addressing? Do you feel confident with your family? Do you feel confident in dealing with your relationship? Do you feel confident in your business? You know, what are the areas that you feel confident in? Good. Carmel, giving presentations. Good. Excellent. So while anybody else is typing in there, I'll just take that as an example. Giving presentations because you know what you're doing. You've studied how to do it. You've got the skill. You've practiced it, and you've got experience. All right. So you know what you're doing. So part of this is study, practice, and experience. Just like learning how to drive a car, when you start driving a car, you need to learn your theory test. So you study, then you practice how to drive the car, and then you get experience. And it's a similar thing with communication. So Eileen, relationships, very good. Similar thing with communication skill. Communication is not something that is missing information. There is correct and good data about communication. So you study it, you learn it, you practice the communication skills, and then you get experience. You don't just magically turn around one day and 1 minute to the next, you're an amazing communicator and your confidence is through the roof. It's something that you work on and you get the skill of communication. So you study it, practice. And one little tip here, and this is from the very first page of this book here called Dynetics, which is at the beginning of every one of this gentleman's books. In reading this book, this is basically called Important Note. In reading this book, be very certain you never go past a word you do not fully understand. And he explains why. And I've put that in my own studies, and it's made a massive, massive difference. So this is the first difference between somebody who's not confident and somebody who is confident. They have the skill, and they've done that by study, practice, and experience. All right, so that's number one. Now, again, I'm not going to spend too much time on these ones because they are common sense. Okay, number two, suppression. Now, what do I mean by suppression? Suppress means to push down. If you are connected to somebody in your life who has a habit of putting other people down in your environment, it is going to affect your self-confidence in many situations. So, for example, if you have a family and most of your family are very positive people and just getting on with life and doing things, but there's one member of the family who is very critical of you, always puts you down, tells you you're no good, you're worthless, you should stay at home, watch television all day, that's all you need, that's all you're good for. If you've got somebody like that in your life who's constantly criticizing you, putting you down, it is 100% going to affect your confidence. Now, they can also do it subtly. In other words, you could have a friend who is very nice to your face, cares so much about you, cares so much. That's why they want you to get involved with them, going out taking drugs and getting drunk every night, because they care and they want to be your friend. But the result is you go downhill. So you have to keep an eye out for that one. If you have somebody in your life, whether it's a boss or a friend or a family member or a neighbor that's constantly putting you down, you have to do something about it. And usually it's handled with conversation. So at some point you have to go up to the person and go, listen, can we have a cup of tea and discuss how you're treating me recently? Because to be honest with you, I'm not totally happy with it. The result of suppression means that you go up and down. So if you're the type of person who roller coasters, in other words, there's times when you're doing really well and then you sink and then you come back up and then you sink again and you go up and you're down, it's an indication that you're connected to somebody who is suppressing you in your life. So it's just something to keep an eye out for. You don't necessarily have to, we do a whole course on this here called Overcoming Ups and Downs in Life. So there's a lot to learn about this, but just for the moment, just keep an eye out for it. You deserve to be treated with respect. And if you're here on this webinar, you're the type of person who wants to achieve your goals. And those type of people tend to attract certain individuals who want to stop you in doing so. That's the first one. Second one is suppression. Now the third one, which I'm glad you brought up in your examples, because I was going to go over it anyway, and that is communication. Now, this is so vital that it can make the difference between somebody who is successful and somebody who is not successful. So communication, it's vital. If you have a friend or a family member or somebody that you know who's well able to communicate, you'll be thinking to yourself, that person is very confident. And the truth is that confidence does go with communication. Now, communication is not this. If you have a friend, okay, who's like this, right? There's you, and there's your friend. And your friend is just constantly talking at you. Talking, 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 la 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 la, and you think to yourself, geez, I'd love to be like that person because they're so able to talk. That's not necessarily good communication, because what could happen is when it's your turn to talk, this person seemingly is without ears. They just are not interested. Or let you talk because they just can't wait until you're finished so that they can say what they want to say. So communication is not just one way. So if you know somebody who is a very good communicator and just talks and talks and talks all the time, it's not really good communication because it has to be balanced. There has to be a balance of this person then stopping talking so that the flow can come back. And if the person is genuinely interested in what you're saying. So the little tip here, and again, there's actually a whole course on communication skill, which we do, which is actually really important to learn about all the basics. But just a couple of little basics. When you're talking to somebody, right, at a certain point, just go right, just be quiet. And then give them an opportunity to talk as well. So it has to be balanced, all right? Communication is basically a two-way subject. It's not just one way. And this is why I love to get participation in the webinar, because otherwise it's just me talking at you through a camera. And it's not really good communication. It's like, and this is why I like to have the feedback. And this is why I ask you for it, so I can understand much more what's going on. So that's number one, it has to be two-way. And the second thing to remember is that when you're listening to somebody and they have finished a sentence, acknowledge it. Okay? Acknowledge it. It lets them finish what they want to say. So, if somebody is telling you about the weather and you're interested, you're listening to them, make sure at the end of their sentence you tell them, aha, I got it. Because it ends the sentence for them. If you don't do that, it leaves them in a spin, wondering, did you understand? Like, does anybody here know anybody, all right, who's a really bad listener? In other words, you keep talking to them, but you don't know if your messages are landing. You don't know because they don't tell you. They don't acknowledge what you say. Has anybody here had that? Where you're talking to somebody, but you just don't know if they're listening, or they just don't listen, or you don't even know if your message is getting through. Has anybody ever had that? Let me know with either a thumbs up or a yes in the chat if you don't mind. Okay, Julie, thank you. Anybody else seen that? Okay, NH, yeah, and Margaret, yes. Thanks, and Eileen. Good. The reason why you feel like, this is completely empty, what's going on here? The reason is because this person is just not hacking you. So when you're talking to somebody, after 2 or 3 sentences, just find out, did you actually get what I said? You don't have to be nasty about it. Okay, Ivan, you don't have to be nasty. Just make sure that you're getting them to acknowledge that they got what you said. They should be doing it on their own. But sometimes you have to remind them. And if you remind them enough times, finally they'll be like, oh, I see. You want to know if I heard you. And it also works in reverse. If somebody is talking to you and gives you 1 or 2 sentences, make sure that you acknowledge them. So someone says, it's a nice day. Don't give them the silent treatment. Just respond by saying something like, you're dead right. It's gorgeous. And it ends the communication cycle. And just putting that one thing in, put those 2 things in, balance your communication and make sure that you get your acknowledgement from the other side. Otherwise, the communication is going to keep spinning in your head. And make sure that when you're listening, that you also listen to the person genuinely and also acknowledge what they say in a natural way. Again, there's loads more that you can learn about this, but it is a really, really important thing to learn about communication. And again, as I mentioned, there is a course that we do on communication which teaches you all the different factors. There's actually about maybe 15 factors, important factors to know about in communication. basics, and once you have those, it goes an awful lot smoother. Okay? Okay, Sean, I had a person I mentioned before that was like that, but they didn't pretend to be interested. They just said they weren't interested in starting talking again. Yeah, it's not really good communication, because communication needs to be a balanced flow. Both parties get their turn to listen. And if you're talking to somebody, after you've listened to somebody and they're now no longer not interested, you might need to point it out to the person. Okay? So there's a couple of basics. There's more you can learn, very important stuff. But communication is absolutely vital. So you can improve that skill. And when you improve that skill and learn all the basics, first of all by understanding it, and then by practicing all the points, you can become very, very skilled. And even if you didn't do a course with us on communication, you can already go out and start practicing this on an immediate basis. Just make sure you acknowledge what people are saying. Let them know that you heard them. Whether you agree with them or not is a different story, but just at least let them know that you heard them. If your boss is screaming at you, saying, I don't know how we're going to get all the cakes sold this week, don't say nothing. At least say, I know exactly what you mean. Anything. But also make sure that when you're telling your boss, listen, boss, we already sold 20 cakes. Make sure that he gets it and be nice about it. Okay? So those are the 3 things that are very common sense and which you already probably know. Now, I'm going to get into the main subject of this webinar, which is what my workshops are based on. I'm going to go over the workshops with you at the end. The number one thing that determines your level of confidence, whether it's to do with your communication, whether you feel confident about going out and talking to people, dealing with your boss, getting to know a girl that you'd like to get to know better, or, I don't know, improving the relationship with your partner. It's all dependent upon this number one thing, and that is thought. Okay. If your thinking is calm and relaxed and clear and it's positive, if your thoughts are positive, here's what you're going to start thinking. I can. You know what? I can do this. I can do this. Okay? I don't know how to drive a huge lorry. But you know what? I can learn. These are the 2 major things that are going to happen when your thinking is quite clear and positive naturally. Now, a lot of people try positive thinking, which is trying to force yourself to think positive so that you'll be confident. So you want to go out and meet people, okay? So you walk around the room in a circle, you go, you can do it, I can do this, I can do this, I can do this. Yes, I'm the best, I'm amazing, I'm amazing. And then you try to force yourself to think positive. Okay, there's nothing wrong with it, really, because you're trying to get yourself into a positive frame of mind. And then when you're thinking positive, you're going to have a positive emotion. And the action is going to be positive too. Now, how positive you think will determine how well you can communicate and deal with those areas of your life. It does come down to what you think about yourself, if you think you can do it, or you can learn how to do it. And that is going to establish as the number one thing whether you're going to go for it or not. So it doesn't matter if I teach you all about how to be skilled, or how to communicate, or how to deal with nasty people. If your thinking is negative and constantly negative, those 3 points are not going to work, because this one is boss. Thought is boss. We write this down. Thought is boss. Thought is king. Now, how do we establish if a person's thinking is clear? Well, thinking, the thoughts that you have about things, come from your observation of the situation in life. So, for example, you would like to bake a cake. So you see somebody and they want a cake, okay? And that's the problem. So then you look in your mind, which is a collection of recordings and information about what you've learned. So every day through life, you are storing information in picture form. Okay? Like your own personal invisible laptop. You're storing everything. So somebody says, I'd like to have a cake. You look in your mind and you go, look at this. Years ago, 5 years ago, I learned how to bake a sponge cake and I remember it. So then you think, you know what? I can bake a sponge cake. And your thought is positive because, I remember. Or maybe you never learned how to make a sponge cake. And you look in your mind and you go, I've never learned how to make a sponge cake. But you know something? I can learn how to do it. So what I'm saying is, if your mind and your ability to think is in really good condition, your thoughts are going to be positive naturally, without this force business, without having to force yourself to think positive. They're going to be naturally positive. Then your emotion is going to be positive, and then your action is going to be positive. So if you're thinking clearly, thought is going to be clear in thinking as well. Okay, so that all sounds simple, and it would be wonderful if you could just wrap up the webinar at that point, give Vincent a pat on the back, send him home, and say thanks a million. That sounds wonderful. There are times in your life and in everybody's life when you are thinking clearly. You go, I know what I can do, I know what I can't do, bang, I'm going to do this. See if you can remember a time when you really achieved something positive. You really achieved, you got it. You can put it in the chat if you want. See if you can recall a time when you really, you achieved something very good and positive and you got what you wanted. Because at that time, you were thinking quite clearly and you come up with some good solutions. Very good, Eileen. Job interview. Excellent. You obviously got the job, I'm assuming. Carmel, successful project delivery. Excellent. You knew exactly what you were doing. You worked it all out. Bang. You had to maybe learn a few things along the way, but you did it. Really good. Thank you, Carmel. Your mind is in good condition. Your thoughts are in good condition. Now, whether you know how to do something or not, it is still going to result in you thinking that you can learn about it. Okay, so we're going to examine this little thing here, because this thing, which we call the mind, and don't mind these people who overcomplicate this thing. It's deep, deep, deep. There are some simple basics that you can learn about the mind. Very simple. For example, that the mind is a collection of pictures that you have just recorded. So when you remember something, you are looking at a picture that you have stored in your mind. That's what the mind is. Where it's located, do we care if it's in the brain? We don't really care, as long as all we're looking at here is what the function of it is, how it works, and how to make it better. Okay. Now, normally, your mind is working fantastically well, and you're coming up with great solutions. Your thoughts are positive, your confidence is there, you get things done. However, this is the person who is alert and aware and awake. So when you're awake and alert and aware, you're recording everything and it's all going great. However, if you are unconscious for whatever reason, partly or fully unconscious, mainly because of this thing, pain, physical or emotional pain, What happens is this thing switches off to a greater or lesser degree. When you experience a lot of physical or emotional pain in your past, this switches off, but the information is still recorded. So where is it recorded? If that's switched off, then where is it recorded? I'll tell you in a moment how this relates to confidence. Bear with me. If this switches off during moments of extreme pain, where is it recorded? It's recorded in a separate, what we would call a compartment beneath the surface. And this compartment in Dianetics we call the reactive mind. It's called reactive because it doesn't think. It doesn't think logically like you. It doesn't see the differences between things. It's just a mush of everything equals everything equals everything. So you have a collection of things that happened to you which were painful that are stored in this reactive mind beneath your level of awareness. So for example, if you are in a car crash and your head goes through the window, you're still alive, but you're on the bonnet of your car, but you are unconscious. Okay? You're unconscious. Obviously, 30 minutes later, maybe when you become more aware again, you can't remember what happened during that 30 minutes. But during that 30 minutes, everything that happened to you was recorded. Everything was recorded. The taste of the blood, any words that somebody said, maybe somebody said while you were unconscious, "You idiot." The sound of the car, maybe the vibration of the car if it's still running a bit. Everything is recorded. And that's for a physical injury. Similarly, if you have an emotional injury, if you lose somebody close to you, for example, you are sitting down having a cup of tea one day at home and you get a knock on the door and a relative comes around and says, "Look, I'm sorry to tell you that your mother has just passed away." What happens in that case, maybe you don't go fully unconscious, but there's an element of semi-conscious comes in, and everything that is said to you during that moment of loss and extreme pain gets recorded here beneath the surface. So there is a compartment of your mind which is operating beneath the surface without you realizing it and without you knowing what's going on. And it's called reactive because all it takes is a similar combination of things to match up with something that happened back here to trigger it off again. So let me give you an example. Let's say I'm trying to draw this out here. Okay, let's say that you have an incident here where in your reactive mind, at the age of 10, you were bitten by a dog. Okay, that's a dog. Okay, just no, he doesn't have dreadlocks. That's a dog. Okay, and all right, painful. You have a memory at the age of 10 of being bitten by a black dog. A bit of color in it. A black dog bit you. Okay, age of 10, fine. You moved on. Perfect. Now, here you are, 10 years later, at the age of 20. And you meet this girl. Okay, and her name is Jacinta. You meet Jacinta, and honestly, you're like, this is the girl of my dreams. Like, we've got the same goals. We like the same things. We both want to have kids. We want to live in a farm in Sligo. I mean, this is ideal. Absolutely ideal. Great. So she brings you home for a cup of tea. And in her house, she has a couple of pets. She likes pets. And there's a particular type of pet she likes, which is basically dogs. She likes dogs. Unfortunately, for Jo, all of the dogs that she has, she's got 3 dogs, and they're different sizes. Some small ones, some big ones, and some tiny ones. They're all black, because she likes black dogs. Okay, well, doesn't mean anything, really. For you, doesn't make a difference. She's amazing. However, the reactive mind thinks different than that. It doesn't quite think logically. Here's how the reactive mind thinks. Dogs equal dog. Those dogs equals this dog here. So I need to protect this guy from danger, because it thinks we've got a dangerous situation again, and it tells Jo into his mind, get out of there fast. So it tries to steer Jo away from Jacinta. It tries to steer him in the opposite direction. Now, Jo is not aware of what's going on. All he knows is he's getting a bit stressed for some reason. He's getting a pain in his leg. He hasn't had a pain before. He doesn't know what's going on. And all of a sudden, he's starting to think, I don't know, maybe this person is not good enough for me. He's trying to justify why he needs to leave. But all that's happening is his reactive mind is telling him to get out of there. And this is all happening beneath the surface. All right? Now, let's add in one other little phrase. Let's say, while Jo was being bit by a dog here, somebody came over to him, let's say his dad, and told him, you idiot. Now, those words also get stored in the reactive mind. And when that incident is triggered again, the words, you idiot, are going to be fed into his thinking without him realizing it. So what's he going to start thinking? Exactly. I'm an idiot. I can't do this. I'm not good enough. She wouldn't like me. I'm not ready. I need to think about it. So what changed from a completely rational situation, just because of one combination of things in present time, which triggered off one incident from the past, these things affect the person without his consent and start causing him to get nervous, stressed, worried, and lack confidence in himself and lack confidence in the girl as well. So this is just an example, one example about how the reactive mind that you're carrying around can get triggered at any point by anything. Let's take one more example, and then I'm going to ask you for an example. Let's say, let's take something like, I don't know. Let's say Joe was in school, okay, and there was a teacher, all right, who told him, "You're no good. You're because you didn't do your homework, you are suspended for a month." Okay, and Joe is here, and he's 12 years of age, and he says you're suspended. Now, Joe didn't do his homework last night, but he actually still loves school, so it's a big emotional loss for little Joe. All right, that happened. Fine, he moved on. Big deal. But at the time, it was a big loss, and it lasted for a couple of days. So now, new situation in life. The guy's working in he's working in a factory. He got a job in a factory. and there's been a change of supervisors. So he inherits this new supervisor. His name is Bob. Okay? But Bob is a nice guy most of the time, but sometimes Bob gets angry and shouts. Okay? Just like this teacher used to shout. And also, Bob has a tendency to wear all black clothes. Okay? Similar to what the teacher used to wear. So in other words, again, same scenario. We've got enough similarity here for the reactive mind to trigger. And it's now going to say, okay, same situation. It's exactly the same as it was before. Now, it isn't. But this reactive mind does not think clearly. When you are reacting, all logic goes out the window when it comes to this reactive mind, and you just lose your confidence and you start thinking negatively. So the guy starts shouting, he's wearing black, it triggers it off. The reactive mind tells Joe, get out of there, and the teacher told him you're no good, so he's going to start thinking like that himself. This is why, and this is explained in a chapter in this book called Preventive Dianetics, that if somebody is injured or experiencing a severe loss, it's best to help them quietly. Give them comfort, be there for them, help them quietly. Listen to them by all means, but do it quietly. And the reason for that is because words can go in and affect the person's thinking underneath the surface. So, let's ask you for a little example here. So I want to just ask you for an example how this relates to confidence, okay? So just think about this for a moment and pop your example into the chat. Okay, I'll read your comment in a second, Sean. Here is your next practical exercise. I want you to give me an example of one thing that happens or that you see or experience that brings your confidence down. In other words, you're doing fine, you're feeling good about yourself, you're feeling confident. Give me an example of one thing that can knock that confidence down. Pop it into the chat if you don't mind. So an example of one thing that can knock your confidence when beforehand you were doing fine. Okay, just read that now in a second. Reactive mind is like animal's mind. Animal getting treated badly by one owner, gets a new owner, he bites the new owner because he cannot differentiate, just reacts. Exactly. Yeah, exactly. It's a bit like an animal mind. That's how animals think. They just store this stuff. So very good comment, Sean. Thank you. Very good analogy. Okay, Margaret, excessive talkers in a group. Okay, we'll take that one. So you're in a group and there are people talking excessively. Good. But you're in there and you've got things to say too. Now, let's say you have the communication skill and you can say what you want to say. But for some reason, something happens and you start thinking, you know what? I don't feel confident enough to talk here. I don't feel like I can do anything. All that's happening is something about that scenario is triggering something beneath the surface, which is affecting your thinking. You don't want to feel lacking in confidence, but you do. Now, communication skill does play a part. So, for example, if you don't know how to communicate, it is going to affect your confidence. That's true. But many cases, even when a person is able to communicate, they see a situation that stresses them out. All that's happening is something is getting triggered beneath the surface, which is affecting what you think about yourself. And the end result is you don't like it. And you regret not having done things. Good? Carmel, other people's criticism, smart comments. Another very good example. When other people criticize you, it shouldn't affect your confidence. But it does in many cases. Now, as I mentioned before, you can learn how to identify certain types of people that love to bring other people down. And you can learn ways to handle those situations much more easily. So there are ways to learn about that. And everybody needs to know that, because if you want to live in this world, you're going to run into people who want to put you down directly or indirectly. But the interesting thing is that the only ability that somebody has to squash you down is their ability to trigger you off and make you subtly start thinking negatively. They can do it in a very direct way, or they can do it in a very indirect way by carefully working out what buttons to press, which they know are going to make you back off. Just subtly, very nice or very aggressively. And all that's happening is they are sometimes deliberately, sometimes accidentally, triggering off something in the mush. Okay? Eileen, if somebody undermines my work or opinion, again, same scenario. Somebody, you've done a great job, you know what you're doing. Somebody comes along and knocks it down. Now look, if you made a cake and it was burnt, and somebody comes in and says, "You've burnt the cake," you'd be like, "Okay, you're right, I burnt the cake." Fine. All right, not necessarily bad intentioned, but still, even if you burnt the cake, you'd be like, "Okay, well, I burnt the cake, I'll try it again." Shouldn't affect your confidence. But there are certain types of people that will try to manipulate you to pull you apart in those different ways. Okay? And so, yeah, if your work is good, you should be able to just go ahead, "My work is good. Thanks very much for your opinion." So somebody says to you, "You know, your art is absolutely terrible. I'd be able to draw a better picture. My 5-year-old would be able to draw a better picture than you." Honestly, it's a horrible thing to say. But you could simply go, "Listen, buddy, you know what? Thanks for your opinion. Great. I'm sure if you want to bring that elsewhere, like to the cliffs of Moher, I'm sure they'd like to actually hear you out in the waves." I don't know, a bit of a dramatic example. Okay, next one. Your opinion doesn't matter. Very good example, Ivan. Again, same story. All they're doing is pressing your buttons. So there's a couple of things that I recommend people do. Learn how to communicate properly. Learn about the ups and downs and how to deal with these suppressive people. Also clear out this stuff here. Thank you, Ivan. Sean, not taking action or saying certain things when the opportunity came and went. Yeah, exactly. So you had the opportunity, it came and went, and somebody then coming in, I guess this is what you mean, Sean, coming in and telling you about doing certain things, but it caused you to delay, or maybe I should, maybe I shouldn't, maybe I should, maybe I shouldn't, and then you miss the opportunity. Again, same scenario. So, yes, you can improve your skill, and it's important. Yes, you can improve your communication skill, and that's very important. And yes, you can learn how to deal with people who are negative, very important. But even if you handle all of those points, if you don't find out what's in here and clear it up, it is going to cause you to not bother getting skilled, to feel nervous about communication, and to be afraid of critical people. Because all that's happening is something is getting triggered underneath the surface. Okay, thank you very much, folks, for those examples. So I'm going to briefly touch on the approach that we take in Dianetics to handle this stuff and to really give you true self-confidence that you don't have to fake all the time. You don't have to get up in the morning and look at yourself in the mirror and go, "You're a great person." You know, try to convince yourself, because naturally, honestly, you do think positive. Naturally. You don't have to force yourself. You naturally think positive. But that has to be cleared up. So in Dianetics, we do a thing called auditing. The word auditing means to listen and to guide. And it's done with two people. And its aim is to help you to find out about the things that happened to you in the past, dig them up, and clear them out. The person delivering it is called an auditor. Auditor means a person who listens. The procedure is called auditing. Okay. The person receiving the auditing has their eyes closed but wide awake. And what the auditor is helping the person to do, using the 10-step procedure in book 3, chapter 5 of this book, helping the person to return and re-experience past moments of physical and emotional pain, one by one, in an exact way, until it's completely cleared. If it's the case where the loss of your grandmother does not clear up, what it means is that there's an earlier similar connected. And what you have to do in each Dianetic session is really get to the basic. As you start peeling off incidents that have happened to you that you can remember, you'll eventually get to this one underneath, because that's the one that's fueling it all up. And so in a Dianetic session, you're not just handling one incident, you're handling chains of incidents, all coming down to a basic incident which might have happened to you 10, 20 years ago. Now, what you're trying to do with Dianetics is this. You're trying to restore, for that person, his ability to think clearly. And when you do that, the person's natural self-confidence restores. And so the end result of Dianetics is very simply clear. That's the end result. Dianetics is not a way of life or something that you do every morning for 15 minutes. It's an exact procedure to help you to clear up the root of your lack of confidence so that you can be clear in thinking again. So those are the things that need to be known about. Now, what do you do first? What you do first, and I want to just lead this into, as we come towards the end of this webinar, a couple of workshops that I've prepared, because the first step is education, is to learn more about yourself. And I can assure you that the answer is within you. You are the one with the answers. Vincent can tell you till the cows come on, what's this, that, yeah, neither. But essentially, you are the one with the data. And what Dianetics does is it helps you to find out those little roots of things which are blocking your self-confidence, because they are related to your mind, and particularly this reactive mind. So let me show you these workshops that I've put together for you. Now, this is the last week we are promoting these particular workshops. And I've gone through multiple batches of it. We're going to be doing a different procedure and different thing in the future. So the course of workshops that I've put together to help people to learn more about themselves so that they can create more confidence and stability is called the Dianetics Explained. And there are 3 online workshops on Zoom between 8 and 9 p.m. on a Friday night. The first one is happening this coming Friday, and it's called Part 1, The Mystery of the Mind. And in this particular module, we'll go over what your mind is in greater detail. How do you know if you're making the right decisions in your life? And what is everybody in the world trying to do? In Part 2, we go into the mother of all unwanted thoughts. And what we do here is we go right to the basic of that chain, and we'll explain what is the root incident. What is the root thing that happened to you that keeps causing you to think negatively about yourself? The root incident. And so we'll give you a little demo of that. Part 3, the effect of emotional trauma and loss. When you lose somebody close to you, you might think, like many people do, time will heal it, it'll be all grand. But it's not the case. These losses can stick and affect you in a major, major way. And I'll explain exactly what ways they affect you and what you need to do to handle it. So those are the 3 workshops. Now, in the workshops, I'm only going to be going over 4 or 5 basic things, key things. But I also want you to read the book, which is included as part of the package. So with the workshops, you also get the Dianetics book. Now, if you're not a book reader, there's the option to get the DVD, which is basically a 2-set DVD. It's 4.5 hours long, 32 mini movies, which explain all the basics of the book. So if you're not a book reader, you can take either the book or you can take the DVD. Now, and the purpose of that is so that while you're on the workshops, you can be reading more about it yourself and improving your education. Now, in terms of cost, the cost of the workshops is normally €30, which isn't bad considering that if you buy the book on its own, it's €20. Okay. Now, we're going to keep this chat open for about, I've got a few more things to say to you, and I'll leave it open for any questions and answers for you. But for about the next 10 minutes or so, we're going to have a link. So if you want to join it tonight, and I'd encourage you to do so, it's going to be €20, basically, instead of 30. So let's do the maths on that. If the book itself costs €20, and by the way, it's sent out with free shipping, and the DVD is sent out with free shipping, the book costs €20, and the book and the workshops cost €20. I see. Basically, the workshops come free. Okay, and this is a fantastic book. It's 500 pages. It gives you, there's 3 books in the one book, and it explains all the basics that I went over tonight, and beautiful glossary for any new terms that you might come across. So that's the manual, and it's sent to you immediately. So if you enroll on it tonight through the link that's been shared on the actual chat, it'll be basically €20. We'll send the book out to you immediately, and then you'll start on your first workshop on Friday night coming. If it's a case where for some reason you can't attend one of the workshops, don't worry, I will take care of you and make sure that you get that workshop yourself. Okay? It's better if it's done in sequence, but if you miss one for whatever reason, I will take it up with you. Look, the purpose of these workshops is to help you to improve your education and build your confidence in yourself and build your knowledge of yourself and your certainty of yourself, because that's where it all starts from. If all this did for you was helped you to be more confident of yourself so that you could talk to more people, more confident of yourself so that you could go out and open your own business, or, you know, go on that trip that you've wanted to go on for many times, I think it would be worth it. If all it did was help you to clear up some of the lack of confidences and the regrets from your past, the things that happened to you, so that you can make new decisions in your life, I think it'd be worth it, right? So, what I'd like you all to do is enroll on the workshops. You don't have to, but I would really love it if you did. I will take care of you on Friday night. I'll make sure that you get the information. You'll have my personal email address for any questions that you have. And I usually make these quite personal and adjusted for yourself. So click on the link, get yourself enrolled, and I will be the one taking care of you on those 3 workshops. Okay? And so that link is going to be open for you. So to summarize, for anybody on Facebook, YouTube, and Instagram, I want to thank you so much for being here. I'm going to go through a question and answer period. So if you've got questions, pop them into the comments. They'll come around to the host who's keeping an eye for me, and they will be sent directly to me. For anybody on Zoom, if you have any questions on anything I went over tonight, or you want me to explain it a bit more, or there's something that you wanted to know about the workshops or the book or anything at all, please pop your question into the chat now. We'll do that for a couple of minutes, maybe for the next 5 or 10 minutes, and then we'll wrap up. Okay? So as I mentioned, that offer is going to be on just until the webinar ends, so about the next 10 minutes or so. So if you're interested, get enrolled through the actual link, and then I will see you on Friday night. Okay, so now let's see. Let me take an action and say certain things. Okay, got the link up there. Chris, if you have any free Zoom meetings like this, I do a series of different webinars, and I have been doing them for a long period of time, mainly based on this book, Grace. And there are new ones that are going to be planned. I have a plan in place, but it's not concrete just yet. It's not totally concrete. Okay? But there are basics that I will be going over on free webinars in the future. And by all means, you can join me for those. But definitely, like really, a lot of my webinars basically come back to this, because I can only cover a certain small portion of things at a webinar. The book itself contains everything that you need to know. For example, the first part of it is what the goal of Dynetics is, general information about what it's all about. Book 2 is about your mind, your normal, what we call the analytical mind, and then the reactive mind, how the mind makes your body ill, how you can inherit stuff from your parents or from your childhood. And then book 3 is the therapy. It shows you exactly step by step what you do about that. And the book is included as part of the workshop. So honestly, it is a real good next step for anybody who's interested. Okay, that's wonderful, Eileen. Looking forward to seeing you then. It is absolutely great. And I think, yeah, and Grace, Mandeep has put some more information there. Yeah. Okay. Good, folks. So if anybody has any questions at this point, who have we got left? Julie, Margaret, Ivan, Carmel, NH, Sean. Sorry to call you NH, but you're just coming up like that. And Grace with that lovely picture of the lovely woof woof. I love dogs. Okay, so if you've got questions, please pop them into the chat. You're very welcome, Carmel. My pleasure. So I'll just take a moment. Just think about, have you any questions? And if you do, pop them in the chat. And if you don't, then not to worry. Sean, would you ever consider doing separation anxiety and how to handle it as a webinar? Yeah. I mean, when we're talking about separation anxiety, people are really often relating that to relationships and the fear of losing people. So definitely, we could do that. Noted, Sean. Noted. Yeah, noted. It would be good. I think, like a lot of stuff that I cover, I obviously go over some basics that people can apply, as I went over tonight, just a couple of basics. But ultimately, what I have found over the last 25 years is this. That reactive mind has to be cleared immediately. It don't leave it until next year or the year afterwards, because the longer you leave it, the worse it gets, the harder it gets to handle it. It's really, really vital to clear up that. And it can be tough. It can be tough when you start off doing it. You might think, oh, I'm terrible at this or whatever. But you just persist, and the auditor helps you through. And you just keep going, and you keep going, and eventually that stuff gets cleared up. Okay? All right, folks. You are very welcome, Julie. And I've been very, very welcome. Thank you so much for your time. Right, folks, I'll tell you a quick story before we wrap up, and then we'll end the webinar. And again, it's going to be open here. The link is going to be open for a few minutes until 10 past. I came across this in Munich in Germany in 1992. When I started off, I was doing this to help other people. I was looking for something to help others. This clicked with me. I thought, you know what? I'm going to try it out on others. And I did, and it made a massive, massive difference to other people. And then I thought, you know something? It could really help me too, because at the time I was a student and I was active, but very nervously active, and actually a lot of stress underneath that I wasn't even looking at. So I had this applied by myself. I got myself some auditing sessions, and it made the most massive difference I have ever had in my life. And the change and that ability has been there with me ever since. So I started off kind of helping others, but then I thought, you know what, help myself too, and that just completely sealed the deal for me, and it's why I've been promoting it. Look, there might be other fancy things out there in life that you can do. This works, and that is found out by reading the book yourself and by getting yourself some sessions. Right, folks, so I'm going to say goodnight to you all, and thank you very much for being here. Thank you all for those people on the other platforms, Facebook, YouTube, and Instagram. And thank you all very much, everybody who's joined us on Zoom. Ivan, Carmel, NH, Sean, and Grace, your left. Thank you so much for your time tonight. Again, that link will be open until this webinar closes if you want to sign up. And look, I hope to see you again, hopefully on Friday night, but at some stage in the future. And that's what we'll do. Okay? All right, folks. You'll see me disappearing from the screen now. Have a beautiful evening. Bye for now.